Good day, everyone. My group and I are thrilled to share our motor learning group assignment. My group consists of Sharon, Joseph, Jit Hong, and last but not least, me, Linnet. This is the flow of our presentation. We will first go through the introduction, then we will present to you the literature review that we have done. Next, we will explain our methodology of our study, the results we have obtained from our study, followed by discussion. Lastly, we will conclude our presentation. So what area did my group decided to study on? We aim to focus on attentional focus, using external cues in our research, to see if it affords learning. Our group is focusing on shooting a netball into a netball hoop. This is an important skill to acquire as it requires strength, hand-eye coordination, direction, gross and fine motor skill, control, accuracy, and precision. The requirements of shooting the netball into the hoop are built upon various fundamental movement skills students have learnt. This is a transferable skill, where students can then proceed to learn how to execute jump shots in basketball, handball, or tchoukball. We chose a netball hoop and not a basketball hoop because we do not wish for the students to rely on backboard-assisted successful shots in, as this increases the probability of shooting the ball in. Instead, we want students to be able to shoot through the hoop, through a rainbow arc shot. Now we will present to you our literature review. The first theory on motor skill application would be the schema theory by Schmidt. The generalized motor program accounts for a series of actions that happen very quickly simultaneously, without allowing the performer time to respond. The generalized motor program is the blueprint for various motor movements, and it can be adapted accordingly to the situation with practice and experience. An example would be the skill of football. Once a player is aware of basic traveling skills with the football, regardless of the constraints, the player will be able to adapt and continue to execute the generalized motor program. The recall schema is a memory system based on past experiences, which helps to pull out suitable responses for future actions. In our case study, we decided to only include participants with little to no history in ball handling, as those who are adept with basic ball handling, such as maneuvering and positioning it for shooting, have a higher chance of transferring their knowledge to the shooting of the netball, which lowers the accuracy of our study. The recognition schema centers around how sensory feedback from ongoing movements is used to fine-tune subsequent movements, thus increasing precision over time. In relation to our study, our participants will gain sensory feedback while they engage in their pre-test, post-test, and practice sessions. This comes from the visual tracking of the ball, the auditory feedback of the ball entering the net, and balance required to stabilize oneself to shoot the ball. Therefore, these two schemas work together to enable an individual to develop their competency and refine their motor skills. In this case, we will be focusing on the shooting of a netball. The second theory would be the optimal theory of motor learning. Wolff proposes that motivation, autonomy, and attentional focus are key in motor learning acquisition. We will be focusing on the use of external focus cues in this study, as research has shown that external focused cues are known to improve skill performance. For attentional focus, there are two types: internal and external focus. For the internal focus of attention, it is where attention is directed to specific body parts and movements. The teacher would provide learning cues that are linked to that. For example, it would be swing your arm above your waist level, in terms of an underhand roll. As for external focus, it would be directing attention to the outcome of the movement through the use of analogies, metaphors, visual targets, and cues. An example would be, imagine trying to reach out to your friend who is standing directly behind you for the underarm roll. In relation to this study, we have provided our participants with external focus cues that were suggested to us by a netball coach. One of the cues focused on the equipment used in netball shooting, and another used an analogy. Moving on to the teaching methods for skill acquisition, the first method would be engaging in practice tasks. There are different types of practice, and this includes variable practice, constant practice, distributed practice, and massed practice. Studies have shown that practice sessions that revolve around improving learners' adaptability to different environments would work better in comparison to practices that were predictable and one-dimensional. Therefore, to improve learners' skill acquisition, it is key to incorporate a varied practice that is suitably spaced out so that learners have enough time to internalize the skills being acquired via different game-like situations. The next would be feedback given to learners. To teach and improve the learner's skills, alongside the practice tasks, it is key that feedback is tailored according to the stages of learning of the learner. For knowledge of results, where the teacher or coach informs the learner of the outcome of the skill, it should be done at the start of the skill acquisition, so that students are aware that they are moving towards the correct general movement pattern for the skill. As for the knowledge of performance, it should be done towards the autonomous stage of the skill, where the focus is more on fine-tuning the result of the movement to improve their performance. Our research design centers on the efficacy of verbal cues as external cues in facilitating students' learning within the context of sports. The saying, "humans are visual learners," is frequently used in the teaching profession. Drawing from our experiences as student teachers at the NIE and our contract school, we have concluded that this assertion holds. However, this observation prompted us to consider the potential for auditory learners. Consequently, we initiated a research study to validate our hypothesis, which suggests that students can also effectively learn through auditory cues. Next, we will go through the methodology. Our research objective for participants is to shoot a netball through a netball hoop. Before the test, all participants will be required to fill in a Google form. The Google form used will provide us with the following information about the participant: name, age, height, whether he, she is an athlete, which sport do they participate in, conceptual knowledge on netball, experience level in netball, and confidence level in shooting a netball through a netball hoop. The data gathered from the Google form will facilitate the evaluation of the research study's efficacy. For instance, an individual with prior experience in netball would not be of benefit to our study, as the verbal cues we provide would not enhance their learning beyond that of someone without prior experience in the sport. The result of the data collected can be found in Annex A. After screening their qualifications, we invited those who meet the criteria to participate in the research study at the NIE Gymnasium on 2 predetermined dates: October 21st, 2024 and October 28th, 2024. These dates were selected because they coincide with the most frequent break time for students at NIE, spanning 10 weeks of observations. We had 10 participants, 7 males and 3 females. We split them into 2 groups. Group A has 3 males and 2 females, while Group B has 4 males and 1 female. You can see the groupings on the slide shown. Before commencing the activity, both groups will receive a brief explanation of the study. Subsequently, each group will have 10 minutes to practice by shooting a netball into a netball hoop on their respective court. The distance between the participant and the netball hoop is 2 meters. Following the warm-up, each participant will have 5 consecutive attempts to shoot a netball into the netball hoop. Their results will be recorded. Once all participants have completed their 5 consecutive attempts, they will commence their 1-minute practice session. During the practice session, Group A will receive verbal cues to assist them with their shooting, while Group B will not be provided with verbal cues. The verbal cues given are: aim for the back of the rim, imagine the ball traveling in a high arc, reaching above the hoop, reach for the cookie jar. Following the practice session, each participant will receive 5 consecutive attempts to shoot a netball into the netball hoop. Their results will be recorded. Upon completing these 5 consecutive attempts, the study will be concluded, and all participants will be briefed about the purpose of the study. We will then use the data collected to test our hypothesis. If our hypothesis stands true, the participants who received verbal cues during their 1-minute practice session should score better on their final 5 consecutive attempts of shooting a netball through the netball hoop.
As we can see from the results, participants receiving external attentional focus cues did better than their own pretest. Those who did not receive any cues has shown a mixed results as compared to their pretest. In Group B, the mean score increased from 0.4 to 2.6, which indicated a better performance. As for Group A, mean score decreased slightly from 2 to 1.8, but shown a high standard deviation of 2.17. We can draw from the results as participants perform better with the use of external attentional focus cues, however at a standard deviation of 1.67, This shows that how participants perceive the cues and translate them into performance is subjected to their individual differences. Participants' individual differences such as age, cognitive level, and physical attributes could have contributed to the standard's deviations. Motor performance decreases with age, and in Group B, there is still a small age gap between participants. As for cognitive level, it affects the level of understanding of the task requirement, including the given cues. Physical attributes such as flexibility, coordination, arm length, and height can also affect our results. For instance, taller participants have an advantage in shooting into the net since their reach is closer to target.
In conclusion, our research has the purpose of finding out if attentional focus through external cues improves motor learning. Through careful planning and implementation of the research, we observed that the test subjects who were given external cues displayed an increase in accuracy in shooting the netball into the hoop. This is invaluable to the PE teachers and coaches, as it further supports that external cues are useful for learners in learning motor skills. We can therefore conclude that external cues do help in motor learning. To improve the findings of the research, future research can include more participants, allow for more resources on time, so that higher validity for research can be achieved.